car, caviar, four-star daydream. Think I'll buy me a football team. Money, get back. I'm alright, Jack. Keep your hands off of my stack. Money, it's a hit. Don't give me a too good bullshit. I'm in the high fidelity first class traveling set, and I think I need a lift jet. Sweet, but she's the kind of woman that men tell lies to. Attention myself. Yeah, she's kind of sweet, she's a nice girl. She's got a little sparkle in her eyes, and see if you can get away with it, fella.
Aria, back and forth. We've had this chattering, giggling line going on in the violins, and then all of a sudden we have this tutti section that kind of kind of a bridge to the next the melody, and which opens in the oboe, and that's what I call the second topic that he chooses to deal with. And we're still in C major. I won't deal with the third topic yet because we haven't got there. Let's see, and here, where the oboe comes in, well, when we get to measure 45, which is, I wish we had more numbers. I'll tell you what, I'll look that one. At measure 45, we are still in C, but instead of continuing with the giggling, chattering line the same way that we did before, he's jumping octaves from instrument to instrument to try to build, I guess, a tension or a feeling of transition. I call this kind of a transitional section, and we come to, I don't think we're in G yet when we get to the next tutti section where the full orchestra comes in, and this is measure
oh yeah.
okay. I was thinking that we weren't quite to G yet, because when we get to measure 59, where our third topic comes in, we kind of, all of a sudden this B flat comes in and we start into another kind of transitional section.
Yeah, but we had gotten to the dominant.
And we're kind of regressing and going back somewhere else.
Well, what exactly happened here?
Well, what I analyzed at first, I saw the looked like seventh chords, and I thought, well, maybe it's a chain of suspensions, but it wasn't. And what I've come up with was an E flat 7 chord in first inversion going to an A diminished chord, and then a what is that? D 7 chord in first inversion, so it's just
Well, no,
7th
D7
chord,
chord is the D7 or what?
G.
Right, but what's happened to the mode? I mean, E flat and the B flat are really significant in that what has happened.
Minor.
Yeah, right. So we have a modal shift.
But that's short-lived because
Yeah, doesn't have to be long to be real.
it doesn't last very long. I kind of, every time we come to this third topic, I think of it as being kind of a transitional topic, because every time we get to that topic, we're going to another key. So, measure 65, we come back into the tutti section, and this is more elaborate than it has been before. More accidentals, but we're still in G, and measure 73, we have this arpeggiated staccato line in the low strings and in the bassoon and horn parts, and it's just an arpeggiated G chord, and then an E minor chord, and then it's a 3-bar thing, 2 3-bar phrases put together, and then we get to the next section, which that's measure 79, and I really feel like we, just in my opinion, that's when we get to G. We're in G now. I mean, we have been in G before, but there it's, I feel like it's no mistake. Let's see. Okay, measure. Things go on pretty much the same as before. When we get to measure 95, which is, it's about 8 measures before the next tutti section. Get to measure 95, the melody, that chattering, giggling line starts moving up in fourths so that we can move to another key area. And it was really surprising to me when we got to measure 101, that tutti section, we hit this E major chord, which, you know, I didn't expect that at all in listening to it. And we've got this E major chord, and we go on to this transitional melody again that, you know, he does every time the transitional topic appears. Measure 125 and measure 133, the fourths in the melody appear again in G, I believe. No, excuse me, that's wrong. Measure 1, I'm looking at the wrong place. Measure 115 is where they start moving up the fourths in the melody. And then the transitional topic appears again after a brief tutti section. He has changed it. Every time he gets to that section, it seems like it changes just a little bit. And
Any word for what we could call that process of keeping doing these things and keeping changing it?
no, I'm not sure about what I would call that. I tried to look in Ratner and I couldn't come up with anything. Can you help me out?
Transition.
Well, he says it keeps acting like transition over and over again. Huh? Well, where is it in the form? Well, what form are we in? Do we have a form?
I don't think we have a form. Harmonically, I feel like it's ABA. We have the opening, which is in C major, and then we're in a kind of a transitional section, which is in the dominant, then we end up back in C major again.
Yeah, but we go through a lot of things and we keep doing things.
Over and over, the same things.
And it is true that not much happens to the material, but it does modulate and it does keep changing it as it comes back. Is this not like a development?
Yeah.
It's a sort of a non-developmental development in the sense of manipulation of the motives, because it really is a repetitious overture, and both of you really made that point. But harmonically, we're going through a variety of keys. We go to G minor, and then go to C minor, and we just go from one to another. So that is really a developmental section. Now, why is it, or is there any reason why you felt sort of uncomfortable with calling it a development? Because obviously you didn't feel so comfortable that you would immediately leap upon my leading question.
Well, I feel like the whole thing's a development. I don't feel like there's one section that is just a development, because it changes from every time you hear something, the next time you hear it, it's the same thing, but it's different. So I don't feel like there is an A section or a B section or a...
Well, what is really missing in here that you would have expected to find?
A recapitulation?
Of something that was unequivocally a recapitulation. Now, is there a repeat in the all in the tonic key?
Yes,
What you
measure
had before?
189.
And how does it start? Does it
Exactly the same. It's exactly the same as it was before. And it does that for like 6 measures, and then we start getting into different doublings of instruments.
Yeah, so it doesn't, it's not anything in the way of really a normal recapitulation.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why I didn't say there was any development section either.
Okay, well, that's what I was trying to get you to say.
And so I didn't feel like there was any...
You
well,
felt that there wasn't really an unequivocal recapitulation.
Right.
And so it was all development.
It's whenever doing this and coming, thinking about that, I was thinking that this is just introduction music and that people are still taking their seats. The music's starting, we need to hurry up and find our seat. And I thought that's kind of what this music was for. Am I right in assuming that? Or?
Yeah, I think so. And actually, when it comes back, just as it did at the beginning, where really are you in the thing? You're just about at the opening of the curtain, right? This is really the cue for the curtain to go up. And what has just happened before? So it's as if it was in the coda instead of in the, and what has happened just before it, where it's really like it was.
Well, we're moving up in fourths again on the melody.
Yeah, and Bruce points out that that's where we quote the C again.
Oh, well, y'all are ahead of me. I'm not there yet.
Yeah. So that's where it's most similar to the beginning, and we're already past the return to the key. So it's not exactly your garden variety sonata form. It promises some of the gestures, but it doesn't carry them through. But it does. It is unstable in terms of key, which is sort of hard to do using as few chords as it does.
Yeah.
But it's unstable in that it keeps changing keys. Not that you're really in doubt of where you are at any given time.
If it wasn't over like a 4-measure phrase or something like that, I didn't call it a key change.
That if it changes key and you feel unequivocally that you are in a new key, and then it changes key again 2 measures later, it still is a change.
Okay.
So that's one of the things I want to leave you with
Okay.
for the year.
It
Okay.
also goes into A major into one section before it gets back to C major. So. And then the ending at measure 344, you know that you're coming to the end with the whole notes and the crescendos and the trills, or excuse me, the timpani part. One thing I want to say, nobody else in the whole thing, the whole overture has any kind of a dotted rhythm after they get into the presto section except the timpani. And it was kind of, I thought, unusual. Why didn't he just play the same rhythm that everybody else does? But he's playing that military Turkish style drumming. So, and we end up in C major, and we're ready for Act 1.
And of course, Act 1 starts right away in what key?
G.
Yeah, we go right away to the dominant key.
It's sort of interesting with the first 3 pieces. The first one's in G, the second one's in E, and the third one's in C. I don't like the C major triad. That's kind of the overriding key of the whole piece.
And that's it.
Any other questions? We can go to our next speaker. Well, we have a lot of time at the end here. Is it up, Act 1 finale is, but I don't have, that's
The whole thing in?
No.
They have just the original.
Yeah, it's in AV and you can hear the whole thing.
3 or 4.
Now let's see, we have a crew of 3. Melissa,
A motley crew.
It's a motley crew.
That's right. Okay, well, we're going to discuss Don Giovanni, which Ratner discussed pretty much at length in the book, so we're not going to say the same things he did. Anyway, he didn't discuss this particular aria that we're going to do, which is the La Ci and the mono scene. He just had a brief little blurb about a paragraph. So, I'm going to just give you a little tiny bit of background so you know where we're going. The first performance was planned for the entertainment of the royal newlyweds during their stay in Prague on October 14th of 1787. So it was supposedly written for these people for their enjoyment. It's called the Drama Giocoso. It's in 2 acts, and the text is also by Lorenzo da Ponte. Its page number is 527. But in Mozart's private catalog, he has a little statement that he said he entered it in his private catalog as opera buffa. So we have a discrepancy here. Drama giocoso means amusing drama, so it's a combination of seriousness and the opera buffa influences. But Da Ponte wanted it to be buffa, and Mozart wanted to be serious. So there's conflict between the two there, and I think they just decided just to go ahead with that and combine those two ideas in their work. During its time, it was probably considered an avant-garde opera because too many notes. It had too many notes. It had thick scoring, and there were quotes. Some of the critics at the time said there's no meat for my Viennese. So, and it was obsessed with the elaboration of the melodies, but it was fascinating and attractive too for the people at the time. It's something new. It had a traditional Mozart scoring, violin strings, two double winds and all that traditional. The whole opera is centered around the key of B, but the piece that we're doing is in the key of A. The characters are also balanced between the aristocratic side and the peasant side. Don Giovanni, of course, is noble man. He was an extremely cavalier fellow. When I was in the orchestra when we did this at Inspiration Point about 5 years ago, and the main character was Don Giovanni. He was a living Don Giovanni. He was about 6'3". He was muscular. He was tan. He had long black hair, and I think he had some Indian influence in him. And he not only was he Don Giovanni on stage, but off stage also. So it was an interesting experience.
I hope it's unsuccessful.
Yeah, but he did try awfully hard. And of course, it's crossed my head, you know, the whole time just watching him. But Don Giovanni was aristocratic. Donna Anna was a lady who Giovanni promised marriage to, but, you know, skipped out on. And then Don Ottavio was a tenor, also noble-bred, and the Commendatore was noble-bred. And these people were going around trying to get back at Giovanni through the whole opera, and you see him being alcohol. The subject...
I think he had not promised marriage to Giovanni.
Really?
Just
Tried to rape her.
Oh, yeah.
Like a rather unusual way to begin a conversation.
So we've got a lot of... The subject of the opera, like, it is kind of comic, you know, it's ridiculous almost to think that there's this Casanova scouring for women all over Spain and everywhere. So that in itself is just hard to believe. It has all these body sexual undertones and all this, and it was, I guess it could be called a dark comedy because even though it is humorous, it's not. I mean, if you think about it, I wouldn't want to be one of the victims of Giovanni, and I'm sure that these women did not enjoy it. At the time they might have, you know, been swept away by his character and swept away by his personal magnetism and everything, but I'm sure that after it was all over with, they were hurt. It's based on the story of Don Juan, and we all know that Don Juan was also a Casanova type person. He's compulsive, Don Giovanni is. He's selfish in his pursuit of women, and he ignores the rules of society, morality, and God. That's what gives it its serious undertone, because he killed somebody. In the very first scene, he kills the Commendatore. So that's that brings in the dark side of it too. But then again, he just turns right around and goes chasing other women. So it's going up and down all the time. Then it starts with, this is Act 1, Scene 3. It begins with a chorus of peasants who are celebrating the betrothal of Mazzetto, who's a peasant, and Zerlina, who's a peasant. And right before the wedding takes place, Don Giovanni enters with his servant Leporello, and he's trying to get rid of all the people so he can go after the woman. So, but before this aria, La Chidera Mazzetto sings an aria, which in his aria it shows how Mozart can develop a character very briefly and very shortly, and sum the personality up all at once with one little aria. It's a very simple little aria. It's got short phrases, which is common of a peasant, of more of a folk-like person. And Mazzetto is telling Don Giovanni that he feels that great lords always take advantage of the peasants, and that the high ones are always trying to step on the little people and everything. And then he gets over that part, and he starts realizing that Don Giovanni is going to try to take Zerlina away. So he starts cursing Zerlina for this, and he sings the sarcastic little tune in which he kind of mimics what Giovanni's going to do. Yeah, he's going to take you up to his villa and make you a fine lady. Yeah, and kind of is telling Zerlina what's going to happen, and you might as well accept it and just forget about it, because you're not going to ever marry him. He's just going to try to trick you. And then at the end of Mazzetto's aria, right before this, he starts getting more and more agitated at Zerlina for this, and he repeats his cadences over and over, saying the same thing, which is an indication of his peasant stature, saying the same thing over and over like a nobleman would just say it once and that would be the end, would be the final word. But that's a split in the character of that from the class styles. And then right after that, there's a recitative leading into the aria, the La Chidera, which is a sacco recitative, which is characteristic of the Baroque style. And Giovanni invites Zerlina up to his villa, promising to marry her and make her a fine lady. So what Mazzetto had predicted comes true, and Zerlina is falling for it, just as Mazzetto predicted. Then the La Chidera aria begins with Giovanni singing, and usually in an aria in the classical period there's an orchestral introduction and then the singer comes in. But on this one, everybody starts together. So that way it makes you think that Giovanni has lowered himself kind of to the peasant level and just is singing a song to her instead of, I'm singing an aria. He's just singing a little song to her. And so he's kind of flirting with her in that way too. And this tune is very simple, and it's a very singable melody, which combines a little bit of seductiveness with a delicate sense of banter back and forth between Giovanni and Zerlina. And the voice and the accompaniment that begin together, the structure of this whole first section, it's a 2/4 section and then it goes into 6/8, but it's structured so that it moves kind of in waves of increasing urgency. It starts out, Giovanni just real sweet, and then it starts getting more and more pressing with the words and trying to convince Zerlina to, anyway. Okay, and it's split. There's in the scene, Leporello just happens to have a guitar and hands it right to Giovanni, and he starts the little plunk. You can see in the music, it's a pluck strum accompaniment, and it goes along and accompanies the voices, and it's very simply rhythm is simple, and it almost divides into two halves evenly, and it's just very plain, and that's peasant-like. And also, if you see on your little sheet that we passed out, did you pass out the words too?
Yeah, it's on the back. But
on the
text
very
is
last
on the
page,
very
the
last page.
text, you can see that Giovanni says his little stanza, then Zerlina sings her little stanza, and it's the same music but different words, so it's like A, B, run and all that with a little coda on the end. And you can see that the singers are getting closer and closer and closer together as each stanza goes by, until finally right before the 6/8 it goes Giovanni Zerlina, Giovanni Zerlina, Giovanni Zerlina. And that's kind of at least a hint to you that something is going to happen, you know? That is pretty cool. Anyway. And also, Zerlina, when she sings her little phrases, she's accompanied by a bassoon, which would indicate a lower class, kind of an opera buffa influence, more or less a peasant-like. And when Giovanni sings his part, he's accompanied by the flutes, which kind of gives you a hint of a more aristocratic idea. And that's another class separation within the same piece, within the same movement in the song. Okay. The rhythms of this probably could be classified as a stylized array, and it contains little hints of a slow gavotte in the 2/4 section. And it's a quote of the Alan Brooke book for Mozart. It's an essence of a lover's serenade. So, anyway, the duet is in 2-part form, or a quatrain. I have this little diagram, you can't see it, but it just, Giovanni starts out and Zerlina, and they just all of a sudden combine. And Melissa, and then we're going to talk about the musical aspects and show you that it's actually using the music and the text to combine, give you a hint of what's going to happen. They don't actually show Giovanni taking advantage of Zerlina, but the music is an indication in the text, and the staging also has a lot to do with that. At the beginning, Zerlina, all the peasants have run off after the wedding. Zettel's mad, he's run off. And Zerlina's on one side of the stage, and Giovanni's very calm, just plucking his little guitar, singing his little song. And Zerlina kind of moves closer and closer to Giovanni as the song goes, and Giovanni doesn't really move until right before the 6/8 part, and he puts down his little guitar, and then they hug and kiss and go off. So the staging has a lot to do with it. You see the words coming closer together, and the music coming closer together, and the people coming closer together, until finally in the 6/8 they are together. So, and the music reflects that, we'll talk about it. In some aspects, this was considered the most popular song of the whole opera because it was so lyrical and because it was so charming, and it was the only scene in which you actually saw Giovanni at work, seducing a woman and using his charm and power through music and through his natural seductiveness to get what he wanted. So,
Next. First, I was going to say something about the key. Is that because the regular key of the opera is in D major, which is like this peasant key. The fact that this is in the dominant A major kind of shows reflects the promises that Don Giovanni is making to Zerlina to raise her station. So you can see that that's kind of, we're still so close to D major, but you know, we're getting a little ways away from it. I thought that was kind of
what we're going to do is Melissa and I are going to point out a couple things in the text that Lynn has already mentioned, and some other things that she hasn't talked about yet. The first thing I'd like to point out, bracketed under heading A, you can see the accompaniment that Luann had mentioned. This is this pluck strum sort of style. It's a very serenade-like accompaniment, and that one thing I'll mention about that, and I hope I'm not stepping on my own toes here, that does come back throughout the 2/4 section, and it stops. Luann mentioned that he puts the guitar down when they reach the 6/8 time. It stops at that point. The pluck strum doesn't come back anymore in the 6/8 time, and so you've got this very serenade-like air about the whole first 2/4 section. When they get to the 6/8 time, he puts the guitar down, and it's not pluck strum at all ever again anymore.
no more pluck strum.
No more pluck strum.
okay. The pluck strum accompaniment is interrupted and kind of punctuated by, you can see it bracketed in letter B, the thirds. These thirds that are coming together in the wedge we talked about in the basement quartet foreshadows Zerlina's acquiescence. You know she's going to give in as soon as you hear this. And and this is in the winds where we have just been hearing the string. And another place that's kind of interesting is in measure 12. Measure 8, excuse me, that you see in the treble, you see an octave E's that are moving together. Then in the left hand, it's parallel. So again, the wedge shape and the parallelism is combined.
Measure and bracketed under heading C. Further on in measure 12, we have the same thirds type pattern again. There are. This is when Zerlina is singing, and a couple things we'd like to point out. When Giovanni is singing, his entrances are predominantly, or I think almost always, on the downbeat. He has very masculine enters, the cruises. And when Zerlina enters, hers are almost always on the upbeat. And also they're more ornamented, which sort of gives away her hesitancy that she's singing, she's not going to give in, but it's kind of wishy-washy the way she's singing. And in this particular measure, in the C, this you see a couple of examples of that. You see the dominant oppositura, the BE, right at the very beginning of that measure in her line, and then the pickup to the next measure, which also shows that her upbeat singing, or not upbeat singing, but her entrance is on the upbeat, which is a feminine sort of quality. Also, she has an extended cadence, which is small letter C right below that on the next step down. Her singing of the line is extended by this cadence, and kind of reflects some indecisiveness on her part. I mean, again, she's singing no, 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 but the music is saying another thing. So, okay.
Right at the end of that cadence, where that's extended, you see staccato 6, 3 of them. That's representing her heartbeat, but we can see that she really is weakening and beginning to feel the effects of Don Giovanni's mood.
Because she says, my heart.
Yes, and then you hear the little heartbeat.
Boom, boom. Another thing, too, that I just noticed, I didn't notice this yesterday, and I may be stepping on a line, but right underneath where she sings heart, where she says, must my poor Mastetto suffer, and then there's that 16th note of run in the strings, very similar to the heartbeat kind of thing. At the end of the phrase, there's this little sort of coloring and the instrumental parts.
Oh, the little turning.
You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. At E, you see Zerlina saying, I wish I were stronger, I wish I were stronger. And the accompaniment has, it's in thirds again, in parallel third, that again foreshadow the agreement, but her line is rhythmically agitated. So again, you see, we know what's going to happen solidly in the accompaniment, but up here she's, while she's saying that she can't. And then, again at the end of her little statement, we see 2 marcato thirds, which means that her heartbeat's getting a little stronger. We see that the intensity is growing. And then the third, right after that,
It's E2.
yeah, at E2, the thirds, and sits right after the little heartbeat, are becoming more agitated. So, again, like Luann expressed, the increased urgency is apparent.
The next thing that we have labeled is under heading, or bracketed under heading F, under her syllable ma, when she's saying, where she's questioning, should I obey my, this pitch fits into the harmony of the point at which it's kind of a strident note, but it fits relatively into the harmony of that particular measure. But then when you get to the next measure, just for a second, she's hanging on to an F sharp against this E dominant chord. So you get sort of a 9, a feeling of an added 9 right there. So
It is the 9.
Yeah, it is the 9. Yeah. And
Don't have to call it a feeling.
Yeah, a feeling.
It's really there.
It really is. So there's like this just momentary dissonance, and then she goes ahead, and this sort of shows how foreign the refusal is to what she really wants to do, because she's saying, should I, and she's singing that thing.
Actually, I want to warn you about the English words don't always exactly correspond, but this is a particularly nice moment because what she says in Italian is but, you know.
Oh, okay.
She's done all this protesting.
We were wondering.
But
There are many times in here when there's a word that's translated into the English into different meanings every time it comes back. Of course, none of us
yeah, right.
are fluent. So.
Without question, it doesn't underlay. There's some effort made so that you can sing it,
Right.
but it's not word for word by any means.
Right before the 6/8 at Lemoncino, I might mention right before that, is it on the line of right above Lemoncino, when we have it singing. And we see in the accompaniment the descending thirds and then the pause. And yet we can see that the resolve is still weakening even further. And finally we have a pause right after they say, well, after Giovanni says, B minor, or let's go. Isn't that really let's go?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
And we know she's going.
And he sings it rather aggressively,
Yeah.
too.
And all of a sudden there's a pause as she thinks, well, here I am, I've accepted, so now I'm going to be Miss Giovanni, or whatever it is she thinks she's going to be. And that kind of is a gallant gesture that reflects her change of status. Her
And then she sings in a sort of sigh-like, yeah, let's go. And then we'll go ahead and sing. Which brings us up to bracketed H, which here we now see absolutely the thirds. And, you know, we've talked about how the lines get closer and closer together and until they were singing right there at the very, right next to each other right there at the very end. And now we're singing together in thirds after she's said, yeah, let's go. And so you get the 6/8 time really emphasizes that.
You know.
You know, yeah. Okay.
Oh, I think I just forgot to put in something. Right, we see that, you know, while they're singing, there's very tonal, no chromaticism, but as soon as they stop, right after they say amor, the orchestra takes over and it's a little bit chromatic and there's some tension there.
J.
Yeah, that makes you realize this isn't as it seems. There's something wrong here. It kind of intimates the fact that there's been some deceit and there is some evil intent here, and poor Zertina has kind of been taken advantage of.
And it's the orchestra who tells it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the orchestra really knows what's going on.
It's like
People.
the truth teller.
And we misletter I, and I was just pointing out of the back at the beginning of the 6/8 that again very singable melody, very sort of song-like singing styles melody. And that chromatic interlude goes on into page 426, and then that brings us up to well, our next comment and our last comment is letter K, which is at the end of the piece, which shows the opera buffa exit music. You get the repeated little two-measure thing, soft and then loud as they exit at the very end of the piece. And this kind of shows that this jig dance quality sort of shows the real humor of the situation, rather whether or not Zerlina thinks she's really going to become Miss Giovanni, Miss Don. Instead, the orchestra is going, yeah, well, you think you are, but we know better.
Then something else happened in the staging. Now Mozart doesn't really tell you that staging starts from that. That's a decision the director makes. But there are some indications that he does tell you. I mean, what you described would certainly work.
Well, this Elvira
Yeah.
comes
She
in.
pops
She
in.
comes in and she's listening, and she spoils the actual.
Now, why is she significant?
Well, she is the one who
She's the one, right?
you know, she chases him throughout the whole opera.
She's
Well, and
the
he-
one he had promised.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
promised originally,
Yeah.
and
And that he had abandoned.
then she comes back to get him, just as
In
all
the
the
scene
other
after
women do.
this, in the scene after this, the catalog aria where, you know, yeah.
But there are there's a lot of instances in here where the music especially symbolizes or builds up and portrays qualities of the characters.
So that it is, for example, possible that in staging it, you might decide that Elvira would make some kind of, at the point that the orchestra suggests, that Elvira might make some sort of motion that called attention to her presence. It doesn't have to be very much.
You mean like at that little chromatic
Come in,
section?
walk on stage or
Right.
something.
Yeah, it was a surprise book, yeah.
Yeah.
Or an old brother book.
I
So,
would have a surprise though.
Yeah.
so that
Here he goes again.
she would really even just have to move and not do anything, but just call attention
Didn't
to
she
the
use the rest
presence
in
of
black also?
Yeah, yeah. She's supposed to have
She's
been
the one who becomes
a ravished nun.
does mind
And
to
she
go
goes
ahead
back.
and become a nun.
Yeah, she's going to go back to the convent. Any more questions that you have to ask the trio? Okay, I guess that this brings us to the end of our endeavors, excepting that I have to read your papers. Does everybody here have a box? Can I put a little group of comments then in your box along with the comments on your papers? And I'll put the final grade there. Oh, you don't have a box. Can you give me stamp addressed envelope with your paper that I can mail to you?
I didn't realize that until we also looked at this. It's really quite entertaining when we're all sitting around looking at these things.
Yeah.
And we kept going, you know.
You know.
Oh, it's okay, yeah.
All right, is this your note?
It's mine. Thank you.
Let's get that.
Yeah. Well, I think we
traveling.
Yes.
I think we're going to have a class on string quartet literature. Maybe look at string quartet.
Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have one in the catalog, but there's one that Kim would examine.
And it would be
They seem to be very routinely.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
I
you
mean,
see exactly
you
what's
can-
happening.
If you took for either Haydn or for Beethoven, a string quartet as a point of departure, you could really cover virtually everything significant in your style.
I enjoyed class.
We need a class on 20th century music for graduate students.
Oh, somebody has a, Luann? Luann? Well, we need a variety of things. I mean, I have to agree with you.
this is nice. I like that. Okay.
Yes, did you need to see me or you're waiting for me? Okay. Oh, yes, I have to let you put it back. part of the division of labor?
That was mostly mine.
Well, this was my sense of the thing, and I wanted to
Yeah.
see for sure. And the other thing is, could you help me
Oh.
carry this to bed?
Sure. I wanted to tell you that I feel like 3/4 of my master's degree work has been done in this room, or for this room, and I appreciate all the time. Where do you want this?
It goes back here.
Okay. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate you spending your time taking your class.
Goodness, these are all right.